The Refuge Within, a Buddha reflection. Have you noticed how easily the mind slips away now? One moment, I am here. The next, I am lost in notifications, unfinished conversations, future worries, old regrets. Attention scatters in 100 directions, and by the end of the day, I feel strangely absent from my own life. Busy, connected, informed, yet somehow disconnected from myself. The Buddha recognized this long before screens and algorithms existed. In the Dhammapada, he observed that the restless mind is difficult to control, moving wherever it pleases, chasing one object after another. What has changed is not the mind itself, but the speed of the world that pulls upon it. And so the struggle feels modern, yet it is ancient. Beneath the noise, beneath the endless stream of thoughts and identities, there is a pattern quietly shaping our suffering. Tonight, I invite you to slow down with me, to look closely, and to discover what the Buddha saw hiding in plain sight all along. The net beneath the fall. There are moments when life seems to give way beneath you. A plan collapses, a relationship changes. A future you trusted suddenly disappears. In those moments, the mind often reaches for control. It tightens. It searches. It tries to rebuild certainty before the dust has even settled. The Buddha recognized this movement long ago, not as a mistake, but as a deeply human habit. The mind believes safety comes from holding everything together. Yet the harder it grips, the more exhausted it becomes. Imagine standing in a river, trying to stop the current with your hands. The strain grows immediately. The water does not listen. Life moves anyway. Refuge begins when you stop demanding that the river obey you. It begins when you remember there is something deeper than control. The Buddha's example reminds you that confusion can be met with wisdom. The teachings remind you that suffering can be understood. The community of fellow travelers reminds you that struggle is shared. Refuge is not a promise that you will never fall. It is the discovery that even when you do, there is ground beneath you. The courage to turn back. Many people imagine awakening as a distant achievement, a mountain peak reserved for rare individuals. Yet the Buddha's insight points somewhere much closer. Awakening begins every time you notice you have wandered and gently return. Perhaps you spent the day caught in worry. Perhaps your attention disappeared into endless scrolling, comparison, or mental noise. Perhaps anxiety carried you far from yourself. Then something small happens. You notice. That moment matters more than you think. A seed does not become a tree in one dramatic event. It grows through countless small turnings toward sunlight. In the same way, wisdom grows through repeated returns to awareness. The mind may tell you that you have failed because you became distracted again. But the Buddha's way of seeing reveals something different. The return itself is the practice. Each time you remember presence, you strengthen a different habit. Not the habit of escaping life, but the habit of meeting it. The path does not belong to those who never drift. It belongs to those who keep returning. The jewel hidden in ordinary days. It is easy to imagine refuge as a special moment. A ceremony. A vow. A turning point marked by certainty. Yet most refuge happens quietly. It happens when you pause before reacting. When you choose understanding instead of blame. When you sit for a few minutes in silence after a difficult day. Like dew gathering on leaves each morning, refuge appears through small acts repeated over time. The modern mind often seeks dramatic transformation. It wants instant clarity, instant healing, instant peace. But wisdom grows differently. The Buddhist teachings resemble a path through a forest. You do not arrive by leaping to the destination. You arrive by taking the next step. Each return to awareness becomes another step. Each act of kindness becomes another step. Each moment of honesty becomes another step. Gradually, almost invisibly, the heart becomes steadier. The jewel of refuge is precious not because it sparkles. It is precious because it remains available in every ordinary moment. No matter how many times you forget, no matter how many times you wander, the path waits patiently for your return. The story you protect. Even after finding refuge, suffering often hides in a familiar place. It hides inside the story of who you think you are. The mind builds these stories slowly. I am successful. I am strong. I am needed. I am the one who never fails. At first, these stories feel helpful. They provide direction and meaning. But life changes. When circumstances shift, the stories begin to crack. The role changes, the career ends, the relationship transforms. Suddenly, the image feels threatened. The pain is deeper than disappointment. It feels personal. The Buddha saw that much of suffering comes from confusing these temporary stories with a permanent self. Like clouds forming different shapes in the sky, identities appear and disappear throughout life. Yet the mind insists one shape should remain forever. This creates tension. The tighter the grip, the greater the fear. Refuge becomes deeper when you stop defending every story and begin observing it instead. You discover that who you are cannot be reduced to a single role. Life is larger than any description, and freedom begins where rigid identity softens. The river that refuses to freeze. Stand beside a river long enough and you will notice something remarkable. The water is never the same twice, yet the river remains. Human life follows a similar pattern. Thoughts change. Emotions change. Beliefs change. Relationships change. Bodies change. Circumstances change. Still, the mind often demands permanence from a world built upon movement. This demand creates inner friction. The Buddha did not teach resignation. He taught recognition. See the changing nature of things clearly. Notice how every emotion rises and passes. Notice how every season arrives and leaves. Notice how every certainty eventually transforms. When you stop fighting this reality, a subtle relaxation appears. You no longer need to freeze the river. You no longer need life to remain exactly as it was. This does not remove grief. It removes unnecessary resistance. The heart can mourn what is gone while still allowing life to continue flowing. The river does not betray itself by changing. It fulfills its nature. Perhaps you do the same. Watching the mind perform. Sit quietly for a few minutes and observe the mind. Almost immediately, voices appear. A memory arrives. A fear speaks. A plan begins. An old argument replays itself. Each thought carries an invisible message. This is you. Yet within moments, another thought replaces it. Then another. Then another. The Buddha encouraged careful observation because direct seeing reveals something profound. If every thought comes and goes, how can any single thought define you completely? Thoughts resemble actors stepping onto a stage. They perform their scene and then disappear into the wings. Awareness remains. This awareness does not need constant explanation. It does not need applause. It simply knows. The more clearly you see this process, the less trapped you become by mental stories. Fear still appears. Sadness still appears. Joy still appears. But none of them become permanent prisons. Like weather moving across an open sky, experience continues changing. Awareness remains spacious enough to hold it all. And within that spaciousness, suffering begins to loosen. Falling without despair. Life eventually dismantles something important for everyone. A dream. A certainty. A relationship. A version of yourself. When this happens, despair often whispers that everything is lost. Yet the Buddha's path offers another possibility. Collapse can become revelation. Imagine a tree during a storm. Some branches break. Leaves scatter. The shape changes. Yet the roots remain. Refuge functions like those roots. When external structures disappear, the teachings remain available. Awareness remains available. Compassion remains available. This does not erase pain. It changes your relationship to pain. You stop falling into endless resistance. You begin falling into understanding. What breaks may still hurt deeply, but it no longer defines your worth. The collapse becomes part of the path rather than proof that the path has failed. Many beings before you have walked through loss. Many have doubted. Many have grieved. And many discovered that wisdom can emerge from the very places they feared most. The ground beneath suffering is often stronger than it first appears. The gentle medicine of non-self. One of the most compassionate insights in Buddhist understanding is surprisingly simple. You are not required to remain who you were yesterday. The mind often treats identity like stone, but life reveals it is closer to water. You have been a child, a student, a friend, a worker, a dreamer, a beginner, a teacher. Each version appeared and changed. Yet something deeper continued. This insight is not a rejection of your history. It is a release from unnecessary confinement. When identity softens, mistakes lose some of their power to define you. Shame begins to loosen. Growth becomes easier. You stop carrying every past version of yourself as a permanent verdict. A tree does not apologize for outgrowing old bark. A river does not regret changing direction. Life evolves naturally. You can participate in that evolution without turning every change into a crisis. The Buddha's wisdom invites flexibility. Not because flexibility is weakness, because flexibility is strength. The strength to move with reality rather than against it. Whether passing through the sky. Human beings spend enormous energy managing appearances. We seek approval. We fear criticism. We build invisible walls around reputation. Yet praise and blame behave much like weather. A sunny day arrives. A storm follows. Neither remains forever. The Buddha encouraged a different relationship with these experiences. Notice them. Learn from them. But do not build your identity upon them. When praise arrives, enjoy it without clinging. When criticism arrives, examine it without collapse. The sky does not become the storm. The sky simply contains it. The more deeply you understand this, the less dependent you become on external validation. You no longer need every person to understand you. You no longer need every situation to confirm your worth. Freedom grows in that space. Not the freedom of indifference. The freedom of stability. A stability rooted in awareness rather than opinion. A stability that remains available even when conditions change. And conditions always change. When doubt enters the room. After periods of growth, many people encounter an unexpected visitor. Doubt. The practices that once felt meaningful seem empty. The insights that once inspired confidence feel distant. Questions multiply. The mind wonders whether any of it matters. The Buddha understood this experience well. Doubt is not evidence that you have failed. Often it appears because your understanding is deepening. Old certainties begin dissolving. Borrowed beliefs lose their grip. The heart starts asking more honest questions. This can feel unsettling. Like walking through fog after leaving a familiar road. Yet fog does not mean the path disappeared. It simply means you cannot see the entire journey at once. The invitation is not to force certainty. The invitation is to remain present, to keep walking, to stay curious. Doubt becomes dangerous only when you mistake it for a final conclusion. Seen clearly, it becomes a teacher. A reminder to rely on direct experience rather than assumptions. And direct experience begins exactly where you are. Faith without guarantees. Many people believe faith means certainty. The Buddha pointed toward something subtler. Faith is trust born from seeing. Not seeing everything. Seeing enough to take the next step. A gardener plants seeds without demanding immediate flowers. A sailor trusts the ocean without controlling the weather. Likewise, mature faith does not require guarantees. It trusts awareness itself. There will be days when practice feels meaningful. There will be days when it feels dry. Both belong to the journey. The heart becomes resilient when it stops measuring value through constant results. You sit because sitting matters. You observe because observation matters. You return because returning matters. Not because every moment feels profound. The deepest transformations often happen quietly, beneath the surface, like roots growing underground. Faith matures when it no longer depends on excitement. It becomes the simple willingness to remain awake to life, especially during ordinary moments, especially during difficult ones. Learning to doubt well. There is a difference between destructive doubt and honest inquiry. Destructive doubt demands immediate certainty. Honest inquiry remains open. One contracts. The other explores. The Buddha encouraged investigation rather than blind acceptance. Not because every question has an easy answer. Because sincere examination reveals deeper understanding. When uncertainty appears, notice the mind's urge to panic. Notice its craving for quick conclusions. Then soften. Allow the question to breathe. A seed does not grow faster because you pull on it. Wisdom unfolds through patient observation. Sometimes the most intelligent response is simply staying present with what you do not yet understand. This openness creates space. Within that space, clarity often emerges naturally. not as an achievement, as recognition. You discover that uncertainty itself is not the problem. Resistance to uncertainty creates the problem. And when resistance relaxes, the heart becomes capable of carrying mystery without fear. The strength of softness. Modern culture often celebrates hardness. Push harder. Work harder. Control more. Defend everything. Yet nature teaches a different lesson. During storms, rigid branches break first. Flexible branches bend and survive. The Buddha's path cultivates this kind of flexibility. Not passivity. Not weakness. Responsive strength. When life changes, flexibility allows adaptation. When grief arrives, flexibility allows feeling. When uncertainty appears, flexibility allows openness. A rigid identity must constantly protect itself. A flexible mind can learn. A rigid heart fears every challenge. A flexible heart grows through experience. This softness becomes a hidden source of power. You stop exhausting yourself through endless resistance. You stop turning change into personal failure. Instead, you meet reality directly. Moment by moment, breath by breath, like water finding its way around stone. Gentle, persistent, unstoppable. The refuge within presence. As clinging loosens, something surprising begins to emerge. Simplicity. The need to perform gradually fades. The need to constantly defend yourself weakens. You become less interested in maintaining an image and more interested in being present. This honesty creates peace. Not because life becomes perfect, because you stop demanding perfection from yourself. You no longer need every moment to confirm your importance. You no longer need every outcome to validate your existence. Presence itself becomes enough. The sound of rain. A conversation. A breath. A quiet evening. Life begins revealing itself through ordinary moments. The Buddha's teachings repeatedly point toward this simplicity. Freedom is not hidden in some distant future. It appears whenever awareness meets reality without unnecessary struggle. Nothing added. Nothing removed. Just this moment. Fully received. Within that receiving, refuge becomes immediate. Not somewhere else, here. The ground beneath everything. After every teaching, every practice, every season of doubt and discovery, one truth remains. Life will continue changing. People will come and go. Circumstances will rise and fall. The mind will sometimes feel clear and sometimes confused. Yet beneath all of this movement, another possibility exists. The possibility of meeting life wisely. The Buddha never promised a life without difficulty. He revealed a way of relating to difficulty that leads toward freedom. Not freedom from change. Freedom within change. The refuge was never far away. It was present beneath every attempt to control the uncontrollable. Present beneath every fear of losing identity. Present beneath every season of uncertainty. Each time you remember awareness. Each time you return to understanding. Each time you accept support from those walking the path beside you. You rediscover that refuge. And slowly, a quiet realization dawns. You do not need life to become something else before peace can begin. Peace begins when reality is seen clearly. When clinging softens, when awareness opens, when the heart trusts the unfolding of this moment. The ground of awakening was beneath your feet all along, and it remains here now. This is Buddha Reflections, where philosophy, insight, and lived experience meet to explore mind, impermanence, and release. The conversation doesn't end here. Visit the quiz tab and share your score in the comments. Thanks for your time, it's been a delight. What should we explore next? Comment, share, and save your insight. Subscribe to Orbital Dharma and keep your thoughts bright.